What's going on, guys? Dom The Commish here, back again. And today, to mark the 12 episode mark of Path to the Podium, which should have been released today, we are going to do the second mock draft of this channel. This one is not going to be if I'm the GM, what I'm going to do. This is going to be straight up what I think is going to happen in the draft. And if you guys like this video, please consider subscribing. We just hit 15, so thank you guys so much for that. Let's try and get 20 by the end of February. It would really mean a lot. And yeah, let's get started with this. So I'm going to try and choose different positions for kind of each team than I did in the first draft. So, I mean, there's a couple that I'm going to keep the same, but there's a bunch of them that I'm going to really make different. So the first player I'm going to go with for the Titans, I feel like there's a lot of buzz that Abdul Carter could go number one and that the Titans will steer clear from quarterback. But I feel like that it's just way too much of a problem. This current Titans team, I mean, they could sign a quarterback in free agency. However, I don't believe that if this team goes into the draft very similar to what it looks like right now, they're absolutely going to need a quarterback first and foremost. Also, let me just apologize. I've been sick all weekend. I've been feeling like absolute shit, so please forgive me if my voice sounds absolutely terrible. But yeah, the first quarterback we're going to go with off the board is Cam Ward, because Cam Ward is just, he's the best quarterback in this draft, and a lot of the buzz, Titans really love him, and if a quarterback goes number one, it's going to be Cam Ward. This is where it gets different from my mock draft, because the Browns just requested to trade Myles Garrett. Now, the Browns are the worst team in the league in terms of cap and talent. They're going to be losing a ton of guys this year. I do not think that the Browns are going to sit there and say, okay, we're going to stick another quarterback into this system and hope it goes well. Because you know why? Because if it does go well, then they're not going to have any cap to surround him with any talent. They should wait until they at least have the cap for it. And because Myles Garrett requested the trade, I think this is priming the Browns up to take Abdul Carter at the number 2 slot, because they got rid of Zadarius Smith to the Lions. They're getting rid of Myles Garrett. They're going to get a lot of value for him, but I feel like now, more than ever, they're going to take an edge rusher in the first round, and they see a generational edge rusher. It worked for them the last time. It's probably going to work for them again, because Abdul Carter is one of the best in this draft. The next guy I'm going to go with is kind of obvious. The Giants and Shedeur Sanders, I feel like, is a match made in heaven. Shedeur Sanders gets to go to a pretty well-run organization. I know a lot of people would disagree with me on saying that because of the Hard Knocks last season. But I'm a huge Giants fan. Contrary to popular belief, I believe in Joe Shane and Brian Daboll a lot more than other people do. The issue is that the past 2 years have just been absolutely terrible for them, and there was a lot of pressure from the owner. I do not like John Mara at all, but there's a lot of pressure from him to give Daniel Jones the contract instead of Saquon Barkley. And I feel like Joe Shane and Brian Daboll make the right decisions. I mean, look at the draft last year and in 2023, besides Deonte Banks. I mean, we drafted significantly well, especially last year. Last year, there was not a single player that didn't make a significant impact on this team. Malik Neighbors, Tyler Nubin, Andrew Phillips, Theo Johnson, Tyrone Tracy, Darius Musu. All 6 of those guys made significant impacts or got hurt. I think technically all of them got hurt and missed time at least some point in this season. But either way, I think you throw Shedeur Sanders into this offense. The offensive line, if they can stay healthy, that was the issue the past 2 seasons, that the offensive line just couldn't stay healthy. We have a number 1 in Neighbors now. Tyrone Trace is a solid back. We could also pick one up later in the draft. And, I think that Shedeur Sanders is just, going to be the guy here. He's got talent. He's got super good accuracy. And this Giants defense, I hope that the Giants get a corner, and that's it. They don't need anything else on defense. Number 4 in the Patriots, I think, is obvious, and it's going to be Travis Hunter. An article came out how they're saying that if Cam Ward, if Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter aren't on the board at number 4, they're probably going to trade down. If not, they're probably going to pick them. So overall, I think that if Travis Hunter goes to 4, he's going to be a New England Patriot, and he's going to be a decent weapon for Drake May to throw to. But he's also going to be a 1-2 punch at corner with Christian Gonzalez, and they're going to have probably one of the most unbelievable corner duos in the league in Christian Gonzalez and Travis Hunter. I know there's a lot of red flags coming out about him, but I feel like top 4 is just the right position for him to go for. And I should also say, I feel like the Jags would be a prime spot to trade down here. I'm not going to have them trade down just because I don't think that it's a good idea for them. But overall, yeah, I don't have them. So at pick number 5, I see Mason Graham here, although I'm not very high on Mason Graham, but the Jags could use defensive line. Offensive tackle could also be an issue. Ashton Jeanty, sleeper pick here. I would be very surprised if the Jags went for it, but it wouldn't be a hit from left field, you know? Edge they don't need. Safety they're kind of fine on. Corner. Could definitely use a corner in Will Johnson. But I think we're going to go with the best player available here, and I think we're going to take Mason Graham. He's just, he's the best D-tackle in this draft. Jags need kind of like that help in the run defense. They weren't good in that department last year. The only guy that they really have good on that edge/D-line group is Josh Hines-Allen. And I feel like with Travis Hunter off the board, they could either go Mason Graham or they can go Will Johnson as a decent corner. I could see them going either way. Now, the Las Vegas Raiders, they're a team who need a quarterback. There's 2 teams back-to-back, Las Vegas Raiders and the New York Jets. They are going to need quarterbacks. One of these 2 teams is going to take Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart is getting top 10 buzz. We saw how much quarterbacks flew up the draft boards last year, which is why at number 6 I have the Raiders going with Jackson Dart. I mean, he's a great prospect. He had an unbelievable year at Ole Miss, even though Ole Miss's team didn't get that far this year. They still had a really good year. And Jackson Dart has just had a great Senior Bowl as well, and if he really shows out at the Combine as well, I can 100% see him going top 6. I do not see him going above Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders just because they both kind of had a lot better seasons than Dart did. But overall, I think that Jackson Dart is a guy that you want to go with. The Jets at number 7, I feel like there's only one right answer here. Now with quarterback off the board, they most likely are going to have to either get one later in the draft or they would have had to pick one up in free agency. There's one answer here, and it's Michael Williams. They just lost Hassan Reddick to free agency again, or they're going to because he doesn't want to be a Jet, and they have absolutely no one at this edge group. I mean, I think Quincy Williams is a linebacker, something like that. If we go to the Jets, let's go. We go to the Jets here. And Hassan Reddick is one, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald. These guys aren't good enough to be the guy in this Jets edge group. And also, you can see I've been preparing and doing my research for the next Path to the Podium. That should be coming out not tomorrow, but on Tuesday. But yeah, Michael Williams at number 7. Jets need the edge group, and Michael Williams is the best edge rusher besides Abdul Carter in this draft. He honestly could have been taking top 4 if Abdul Carter wasn't as good as he was. The next guy we're going to be taking is for the Carolina Panthers. Now, if the draft goes out this way, I can see them taking a receiver for Bryce Young to throw to, and I think that guy will be Teteroa McMillan. You're a top 8 pick, first round pick since 2023 where you took Bryce Young, and it hasn't worked out just like you wanted, but it's worked out decently now because he's been a lot better. But McMillan is a stud wide receiver. You really don't have a stud receiver in this offense. Your biggest weapon was Chuba Hubbard and Adam Thielen. Xavier Legette had an okay year. You had like guys like a Jalen Coker as well. And it's like, these guys are just kind of mid. You need that one guy. Tetairoa McMillan, I feel like, will be that one guy for the Carolina Panthers. And they have a lot of needs. They could pick up a receiver in free agency, but based on this team, I feel like that is their biggest need. The New Orleans Saints, once again, in cap kind of hell. Their receiver room is okay, but always injured. But I look at the guys I have here. Kamara's getting older, but you have Kendre Miller behind. Will Campbell could be a nice steal here. If I go New Orleans, I see tight end is Juwan Johnson's a good one as well. You just picked up Fuaga, who had a pretty decent season. Penning, as well as a decent tackle. I don't think you take Will Campbell. So I think it's probably going to be on defense. You have Will Harris and Tyrann Mathieu. You don't really need safety. I know I said I wasn't going to trade anyone down, but this would be a prime spot for the Saints to trade down. But since I'm not doing that, I am going to go with... Because here's the thing. The Saints are losing Paulson Adebo this year. I know they just got Kool-Aid, but they do not have the cap to re-sign Paulson Adebo. But we're going off of what these teams would do with their current team now, and I think the answer is James Pierce Jr. And the reason is because, once again, he's another guy that could have gone top 6, top 5 if Abdul Carter and Mykel Williams don't exist. James Pierce Jr. is a very talented guy out of Tennessee. Cam Jordan is getting up there in age. Carl Granderson and Chase Young's going to be leaving. But overall, like, this is a team that desperately needs young edge talent. And so James Pierce Jr. is, I think, going to be that guy. With the Chicago Bears, honestly, I can definitely see them stacking up on talent. The pick that makes the most sense here is Will Campbell, but they drafted Darnell Wright a couple years ago, and they already have Braxton Jones, who, while not a great tackle, is not a terrible tackle, and really their bigger needs is in the offensive guard position and down the board, which is why I could see him taking Kelvin Banks. However, you had one of the best secondaries in the league last year. I think that at pick number 10, when I see a guy like Malachi Starks, unbelievable safety, pairing him with Jalen Johnson in the secondary, doubling. This is what I wish more teams did often. The Giants did it last year with their edge group. It didn't technically work out that well, but it definitely does work for other teams. But if you add to one of the most loaded secondaries in the league, Malachi Starks, along with Jalen Johnson, I think that, the Chicago Bears could be a force to be reckoned with. And I know they need offensive help, but the offensive help is going to come from the interior line and Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams needs to be better in order for this offense to succeed. He had more than enough chances on this could have been offense to succeed. And I think that he needs to figure it out. It's not on the line. San Francisco 49ers, you get Will Campbell at number 11. I'm so happy with it. He can replace Trent Williams when he eventually retires, because he is going to be retiring soon. That offensive line besides him and Dominic Pooney is pretty bad. So I feel like at number 11, taking Will Campbell is an absolute steal. I know you're not supposed to neglect offensive line in the draft, but a lot of these teams have too many bad position groups. Like, Titans was quarterback. Browns is everything. Giants is quarterback. Patriots is... They do have not a lot of offensive linemen, but taking Will Campbell over Travis Hunter is insane. Mason Graham. D-line's a bigger one. Edge group. And they already have 2 tackles. 3 tackles if you count Tyron Smith. But overall, Will Campbell to the 49ers at 11. Great pick for them. Dallas Cowboys, this is obvious. Ashton Jeanty right here. If the board goes on like this, Ashton Jeanty is going to be the guy at number 12. And overall, what is else there to say? He's an unbelievable running back prospect. Really good. And that's all we have to say. Now, the Miami Dolphins is interesting. They have a lot of talent here. Wide receiver they don't need, although Tyreek Hill is leaving, so I could see them taking it. Could use some D-line help. The linebackers are okay. Your corners, besides Jalen Ramsey, aren't great. When you're starting Storm Duck at your third corner, I feel like it has to be Will Johnson, because you have Jalen Ramsey. Why not add a new number one corner with him? He's going to start slowing down eventually. And Storm Duck is just not good enough to be a starting cornerback in this league. I think there's some guys on IR or something like that. Is there, or no? The Indianapolis Colts, very easy. Tyler Warren. It's not even close. I mean, the Colts desperately are in need of a tight end. Anthony Richardson could use a guy like Tyler Warren to help him develop. A guy that, when Anthony Richardson tries to get a big play out of his receivers, Tyler Warren is the guy that jumps up and absolutely kills it every single time. Now, the Falcons, they have a lot of needs on this team. But there is one trend that I see with the Atlanta Falcons a lot. Let's take a look at it. Last year, they drafted Michael Penix Jr. 2 years ago, they drafted Bijan Robinson in the first round. 3 years ago, they drafted Drake London in the first round. 4 years ago, I actually don't know who they drafted 4 years ago. Let's go check it. So Michael Penix from the first round last year, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts was 4 rounds ago, and then you have AJ Terrell. What is the last 4 drafts? They have drafted skill position players that they really didn't need. I guess you could argue Drake London, but Michael Penix, they just signed Kirk Cousins. I know he's garbage now, but they just signed Kirk Cousins and they dropped Michael Penix really high. Bijan Robinson, they just had Tyler Algier, who had a 1,000-yard season. Drake London, they needed receiver help. And Kyle Pitts, tight end is a need at 4 when they could have had so many other guys in this loaded 2021 class. So overall, the Falcons always take skill position players in the first round. What I think is going to happen, if the board goes around this way, is Luther Burden to the Falcons. Because you give Penix another weapon that doesn't throw an interception to the Giants. I think that was one of the only interceptions we had all year. And I'm talking about Kyle Pitts, not even Penix. But, yeah, Luther Burden going to the Falcons, great player. That's all I have to say. And, he was kind of didn't have great quarterback play this year. And he kind of regressed a little, but his talent is just too good to pass up. Now we have the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals, for a near playoff team, they have a lot of weaknesses. And I think one of the bigger weaknesses is the interior offensive line. Not good. So, overall, I feel like for versatility's sake, it's going to be Kelvin Banks Jr., but it could also be Tyler Booker, who's more of a straight guard. But I think because they could also definitely play him at right tackle or even left tackle, because I know Paris Johnson Jr. was more of a right tackle. But they could play Kelvin Banks pretty much anywhere on the offensive line. I think his versatility is something that the Cardinals could really use, find where he plays best, and bring it there. And yeah, he was a great tackle at Texas, but he lacks a little bit of the size at only 6'4", 324. He doesn't really have that tackle height, but he definitely has guard height, but he could also just be a good tackle. So overall, pick 16 to the Cardinals. They'll be a great pick for him. Cincinnati Bengals. There is one thing that this team needs, and that is defense. I think I'm going to go with Siobhan Revell out of East Carolina. Corner is just an absolute desperate need for them. They had the sack leader, I believe, in Trey Hendrickson. The D-line isn't a problem. The problem is the secondary allowing so many freaking yards. Maybe you need also a run defender, but Siobhan Revell at 17, you need a number one corner. And I love this guy, East Carolina. I know he didn't play against the best competition all year, but he's talented, 100%. Seattle Seahawks, I feel like their weakness is also going to be in the interior offensive line. Laken Tomlinson, Oluwatimi, and Anthony Bradford are not the best. Charles Cross I'm a fan of. Their defensive line also could use some help. They don't really have a good edge rusher group. The secondary doesn't need any help. So I think it's between Tyler Booker and Jalen Walker. And based on versatility's sake, I think I'm going to go with Jalen Walker over Tyler Booker just because he could be a linebacker and an edge rusher, which both are not amazing position groups for this Seattle Seahawks team. So Jalen Walker it is. Interior offensive line can be fixed later in the draft. So I don't think it makes sense for them to take one this high, especially when they have other needs. All right. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they had a great run. I mean, Baker Mayfield's been really well. Chris Godwin is going to leave, but they have Jalen McMillan. They could go Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, but they got Cade Otton. Tackle, they have Tristan Wirfs. I mean, they don't have too many. I mean, Bucky Irving, Cody Mauch's a good guard, Grant Barton. They have a great offensive line. I mean, really, what they need is a absolute star edge rusher. That's what their biggest need is. And honestly, Nick Scorton, he's kind of fallen down draft boards, or even Mike Green. I like both of these guys, especially in the first round. We're going to go Nick Scorton, though, just because, he's a great edge rusher, and they need an edge rusher. He was projected sometimes to be like a top 12, top 15 pick. Falling all the way to 19, we'll gladly take him here. Denver Broncos are in need of a tight end, and it's not going to be Colston Loveland, but it's going to be the second tight end in the first round. Harold Fannin Jr. had one of the best statistical tight end seasons in the league, in the NCAA, ever. Statistically, he had a better year than Tyler Warren did, but Tyler Warren did a lot more for Penn State, and he played a lot better opponents, and he also had that USC game, which was unbelievable. Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this is somewhere, it honestly is a match made in heaven for me, because especially if George Pickens forces his way out, I feel like you're gonna want to get Justin Fields another weapon in Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden is stud receiver at Texas. He's been flying up draft boards, and I feel like he gets taken within the top 22 here. And if Pickens leaves, they need a new number one, and Matthew Golden could definitely be that guy. LA Chargers. What went wrong with them in that game? The issue was Justin Herbert throwing a lot of picks, and the receivers not being able to catch. Overall, we could go receiver, but now that Matthew Golden's gone, I don't feel comfortable taking Emeka Egbuka this early. Their also need is a corner and a D tackle. Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame and Trey Amos out of Ole Miss could definitely be, and Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. I like all three of them. And then you got D tackle, Derek Carman, Tyleek Williams, and Walter Nolan. I feel like it's quite obvious where most of the value is. And it's not in corner because Benjamin Morrison was hurt a lot this year. So he might be, and he's a little bit small, he might be a liability and could easily be a bust compared to Derek Harmon, the Oregon D tackle who was unbelievable all year for Oregon. Not that Benjamin Morrison wasn't, just Derek Harmon was better, I think. Now the Packers, this is where they're going to go corner. Their biggest need is definitely corner. I know Rashawn Gary had a bad year, and they could use edge as well. They could also use a number one receiver, but no. We're going with Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. He's the best corner left on the board. And even though he is a risky pick, the Packers were a decent playoff team. So I think you gladly take them. Now, the Vikings, this is exactly where we're going to go with Nick Emenwari, the safety, because this Viking secondary was one of the worst in the league. Harrison Smith is getting older, and I feel like, adding another safety into this group, all the best corners are gone. I mean, you're not going to take Trey Amos, Maxwell Harrison, or Darian Porter this early. Most likely you trade down and take Trey Amos later, but Nick Emenwari is still a very good pick here. The Houston Texans, they lost Tank Dell for the entire season next year. Their big issue was C.J. Stroud's sophomore slump, but I definitely think he'll bounce back from that. The defense was really good this year. I think that if you leave C.J. Stroud with only Nico Collins as a weapon, it's going to be a lot worse, especially because Tank Dell has been injured this entire year, and he's going to be injured the next year. So I think it's going to be Emeka Egbuka here going to the Texans. In 2026, when they have a core of Collins, Egbuka, and Tank Dell, it's going to be better. But if they don't draft a receiver this year, and they don't pick up one in free agency, you're going to have Nico Collins, Robert Woods, and Xavier Hutchinson. And, that's not what I want to see out of this team. The LA Rams, overall, have a decent bit of needs. Their biggest issue last year, and what made them not beat the Eagles, was just not being able to stop Saquon Barkley. Which is why we need someone who can make big open field tackles, which is going to be Jihad Campbell out of Alabama. He's been falling down draft boards. I still think he's a first-round talent. He's the best true linebacker in this class. I know you have Jalen Walker, but he's kind of like an edge and an off-ball linebacker. He's the best true off-ball linebacker who can make big plays and who can also make big open field tackles. The Baltimore Ravens, honestly, for the Baltimore Ravens, I think that you have to double down on what you're really good with. This offensive line is already one of the best in the league. And honestly, taking best player available, adding Tyler Booker to this offensive line for the Ravens is going to be unbelievably good. And, they're going to be even more of a lethal run game this year because, you don't know when Derrick Henry's going to start slowing down. I know he probably won't, but you never know. The Detroit Lions definitely could use a corner, but it's a bit too early for Trey Amos. I don't think they'll take him in the first round. He's not a first-round talent. They already have enough good D tackles and edge rushers. Honestly, I know that the Lions were linked with Mike Green, so honestly, I could see them taking it. They have good tackles. As much as I want to take Membu and Josh Simmons, they have good tackles. So I think I'm going to go with... Where is he? I think I'm going to go with Mike Green because he has been linked with Detroit. And Mike Green has been really impressive in the Senior Bowl and last year. So pairing him up with Aiden Hutchinson, this Lions team, barring injuries, they had such an unlucky year with injuries last year. They should have a really good year this year with injuries. Hopefully. It'll be a lot better. Now, Washington Commanders, this one is super obvious. Armand Membu out of Missouri. They need offensive tackle. Look, there's one right there who was ranked top 20 in the class. I'm gladly taking him right here. Super easily. The Bills, need a defensive player on the other side of the ball, I'm looking at maybe a D tackle, Tyleek Williams. You could also take a safety or a corner. Overall, if I'm in this position, I do think they trade out of this spot. But I feel like overall, it's a bit tough. I know I said Trey Amos probably isn't a first rounder, but they are desperate need of corner. I mean, they had no they had no Pro Bowlers on defense. None. So let's help Josh Allen. Let's get him a secondary guy. Trey Amos, not a first round talent in my books, but neither is Hairston. He could be, but I don't think so. He's just too small for that. But yeah, let's get Josh Allen some defensive help. I like Trey Amos, not enough for a first rounder though. But I think you have to take a risk on this. You can't go offensive. The Chiefs, Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. The offensive line was the main reason they lost the Super Bowl. And overall, they're in desperate need for offensive tackle help. So, yeah, Jawan Taylor, if they stop letting him get away with so many false start penalties, is one of the worst tackles in the league. So, yeah, let's get him some help. Josh Sims at Ohio State, very good value for this place. Now, finally, for the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, let's look at this Eagles team. This is going to be a tough one because overall, they need to re-sign Zach Bond. If they're able to, it's good. Their edge group and D-line group is good. Their defensive back group is good. So what I'm looking at is this offensive line. Lane Johnson is getting older and could very well. I don't know if it's a rumor yet, but he definitely could decide to call it quits this year. Maybe, if not this year, next year, because now we just won a second Super Bowl, I believe, because he was there for the first Eagles Super Bowl, but he's getting a lot older. So I see Cam Williams, who played right tackle for Texas. I think he could just slot in and replace. They used to do a 7-round. That's dumb. He could definitely go in and replace Lane Johnson if he needs to and when he needs to. So this is the updated mock draft. I guess let's just go back over it. Quarterbacks, 3 in the first round: Cam Ward, Shador Sanders, Jackson Dart. Running back, Ashton Jeanty. Wide receivers, you have Tedero McMillan going to the Panthers, Luther Burden to the Falcons, Matthew Golden to the Steelers, and Emeka Egbuka to the Texans. Tight ends, you have Tyler Warren and Harold Fannin Jr. going to the Broncos and the Colts. You have a bunch of offensive linemen, the best one being Will Campbell going to the 49ers. I love that pick, I have to say. Offensive guard, I'm going to count Calvin Banks Jr. as one because I think he's going to play offensive guard in the league. And you also have Tyler Booker going to the Ravens, which would be an unbelievable pick. And then defense, obviously Abdul Carter, top 2. You have Travis Hunter, Michael Williams, Mason Graham. Big picks. So let me know what you guys agree with, and let me know what you guys don't agree with down in the comments below. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I hope you had a great Valentine's Day.